Hello there, my RPG lovers, and welcome to another video. Blades of Fire is a new action-adventure game which came out on May 21st for PC and consoles. I've been following this game for a couple of months and I wanted to cover it with a review on the release date, but I could not get my hands on the review key, unfortunately. So I just bought it like a normal person and started playing it right after I was done with the Fall of Avalon review. By the way, you can check out that review if you didn't already. Blades of Fire is only available on Epic Store on PC, which kinda sucks. And that's probably the main reason why a lot of people will miss out on this game. I didn't see a lot of coverage for Blades of Fire on YouTube, and again, the Epic Store exclusivity is probably one of the reasons for that. Putting that aside, I was pleasantly surprised with the quality of this game.
Can you understand what I'm saying?
But before we start with the video, I want to give a huge shout out to my channel actually, because I'm getting really close to 100k subscribers and it will mean a lot to me if you subscribe right now if you haven't already. I played around 10 hours so far, so I got a pretty good grasp of the game in general. This is like my first impressions video, it's not a full review. I think the game looks pretty good, especially when it comes to the environments. I'm running the game in 2K resolution with high textures and a balanced preset with DLSS and frame generation on. I didn't have any frame drops or stutters for about 4 hours of gameplay until I reached a certain zone in the game. Then I started getting some very annoying and aggressive stutters, so I really hope they will have some patches that will address these issues. The moment I completed this zone, the stutters almost completely went away, but they might happen again the more I progress, I don't know. Putting that aside, I didn't have any other technical difficulties. Mercury's team, the studio behind this game, used their in-house game engine to develop this game, which is pretty cool. I like how the game looks in general, and the fact that it has a similar style to old PlayStation 3 action adventures is just a plus in my book. I always try to judge games by what they are trying to do and how well they do it. Blades of Fire definitely wants to be like those old action adventures from the 7th generation of consoles, but it's also a lot more than that, I would say. It's not linear like those old games, at least when it comes to the level design and how open it is. And the game features a very interesting directional combat system.
So now in my notes. You finish them off faster than I do.
But let's start with the story first. The premise of the story in Blades of Fire is very simple. You need to stop the evil queen who is turning steel into stone, that's pretty much the whole gist of it. The protagonist is called Eren, and he gets some special powers from the ancient hammer, which allows him to use the Forge of the Gods.
Forge your steel here, and prove yourself worthy.
The game has a pretty decent presentation in general. The cutscenes are interesting and the story itself is fine so far.
Come, little one. I'm not going to hurt you.
It seems like every major area you start exploring has its own little story and characters.
I forgot. You're flesh and bone. You can't do that.
All of the characters I met so far are unique and memorable. Some of them will accompany you for a while until you finish the quest related to them. And speaking of your company, Etso is the most important side character you meet in the very beginning.
You must be Eren, right?
He will help you with some specific things in the game like puzzles, and he is also analyzing all enemies you fight in the game. The more info you get about these enemies, the more crafting recipes you'll unlock, and Etso keeps the track of that. There is a very detailed bestiary in the menu, which keeps filling up when you discover more enemies. But it's not just about the enemies, Etso keeps recording everything like locations and game features. You can send Etso to the camp with a press of a button or bring him with you, which you'll have to do in some specific cases in order to loot a specific item or to progress further.
You'll give me a heart attack one of these days.
So yeah, the little fanboy kid is actually very useful.
Can't you handle this on your own? I'm reading.
The books can wait. I can't.
The gameplay in Blades of Fire is pretty damn fun so far, and it's not exactly your typical action adventure or Souls-like. I mean, yeah, the game has some features which you can attribute to those genres, but Blades of Fire is also trying to do its own unique thing. The game uses a directional attack system for all weapon types. All enemies have weak spots that you have to target, and this can change in the middle of the fight even, so you have to keep your eyes on the enemy. You'll have to do that with the target lock, but you can also play it without it if you prefer. But only if you already know the weak spots of enemies that you're going to fight. It's much easier and simpler than it sounds though. And more importantly, it's very fun and engaging, at least it was for me. It starts off a bit shaky and the first impressions were not so great. That's probably because it's not a very straightforward combat system that we got used to, it's trying to do something a bit different. So there's definitely a learning curve for sure, and some people might not like it. Come to think of it, the combat in this game reminds me of the Surge games a little bit, because you have directional attacks that will target enemy limbs. Not only to target them, but cut them off as well. Your weapon attacks will just bounce off if you target the red zone of the enemy. By the way, I played with my Xbox controller, which works great for this game. All of your attacks are on face buttons. Y is for the head attack, A is for legs, X is for left, and B is for the right attack. It will make more sense once you start playing it, but it definitely takes some time to get used to this combat system. You can try to keep it as simple as possible though. I tend to use the heavy attack a lot, which is very effective if timed correctly. But it's very slow with big weapons and it costs a lot of stamina, and you can get hit a lot if you just waste your attacks. Speaking of stamina, the way it works is not like you would expect. The amount of stamina you have will depend on the weapon you use and how you craft it, and we'll get to that in a minute. The way you regenerate stamina is by actively using the block mechanic. Again, it takes a while to get used to, but it makes sense after putting some hours into the game. You can also increase your stamina and health by exploration when you discover these special gems. There is no leveling up system of any kind, but there is a small progression system that also depends on the items you loot. The character progression in this game is basically all about the weapon crafting and gathering materials. As you would expect, the game has dodge and parry mechanics as well. Parrying attacks is not that easy in this game because the window for it is pretty small. On the other hand, dodging out of the way is pretty easy and you have a step dodge and a big dodge. But this game is not a dodging simulator, it actually encourages you to be aggressive. The challenge comes from having to use correct directional attacks and appropriate weapon type. For example, some enemies are completely resistant to slashing damage, so you'll have to use a blunt weapon like a mace. But even if some enemies are resistant to slashing damage, for example, they might be still vulnerable to stabbing damage, so you can still use the sword. And you can switch between these two modes with a press of a button. You constantly have to switch between these weapons and styles, which is not as tedious as it sounds. You also get to choose a difficulty setting in the beginning, and I went with the hardest. Even so, I didn't find the game extremely challenging once you get the hang of these mechanics. You will die a lot for sure, which also causes you to drop the weapon you were currently using. At first, I was not so sure if I'm going to like this mechanic, but it's not a huge deal actually. It's not as punishing as it seems, because you can pick up that weapon even if you die again in the meantime, it won't disappear. This can create some annoying and unnecessary downtime when you have to go back and pick up your weapon instead of progressing further in the game. And since the map in Blades of Fire is never a straightforward run, it can cause some frustrations. In my experience so far, I could always just teleport back to the forge and craft another weapon, which is usually even better than the one I lost. So far, I fought a lot of different enemy types, mini-bosses, and just a couple of big boss fights. Killing regular enemies can be really easy, especially with a well-placed strong attack with a two-handed weapon. The combat has some decent weight to it, although some of the sound effects could be a bit better. Pretty much all enemy attacks are well telegraphed, and the hitboxes are pretty good as well. There are a lot of elite enemies that you're going to fight, which can be more challenging than actual boss fights, but this will probably change the more I play. Like I said, the game is reminiscent of old PlayStation 3 action adventures, with some more modern game mechanics and features on top of it. For example, the level design is much bigger and more open compared to those old PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 action adventures. I don't remember having a single loading screen while exploring the map, which makes the exploration much better and it also helps with immersion. In fact, I would even say that the level design is one of the best things about the game so far. It's like an open world, but a very dense open world, with a bunch of shortcuts and vertical exploration. It's kinda similar to Dark Souls 1 map design, but I would say it's a bit more open than that, and maybe a bit bigger, I'm not sure. You can find a lot of secret little areas with items to loot if you're willing to go off a beaten path. Even the beaten path itself is not so easy to find sometimes, but I enjoy trying to figure out where to go next. Although some people might find it frustrating. I don't recall seeing any quest markers on the map or anything similar to that. You will have some icons on the map, but no quest marks or anything similar. The checkpoint system is similar to bonfires from Souls-like games, and they are done very well. In terms of having enough of them in crucial spots, so you don't have to make a long run back to where you died. And you can also teleport between them, which helps a lot. I'm really enjoying the exploration in this game, and I think it will only get even better from here, but we'll see.
Maybe.
Maybe what?
Then we have the crafting system, which is much more important than you would expect. It's actually the main feature of Blades of Fire, hence the name of the game. You can craft various weapons in the game as long as you unlock the blueprints and gather enough items. You have various options for different weapon parts and the materials you can use. You can see in real time how all of this affects your weapon stats, which can be a bit overwhelming at first. The main thing I focused on is the length of the blade, damage and stamina usage. The minigame for crafting weapons is actually very good. You have to align these little bars within the white part of the blade, which represents the shape of the weapon. Just like everything in this game, it takes a while to get used to, but once it clicks with you, you realize it's actually pretty cool. You don't have to do this all the time if you don't want to, because the game will remember your last successful attempts. At least for the same weapon type that you already crafted. But every time you unlock another weapon type in the game, you'll have to do this at least once. I think it's a fun little minigame, which plays a big part in how effective your weapon will be in a fight. Much more effective than most RPGs, to be honest, because it seems like each and every one of these weapon stats matter. It matters how much damage you deal, when the weapon will break, the reach of the weapon, stamina usage and so on. You can really feel all of this in the actual fight, which tells you a lot about the crafting system and the combat system in general.
It's an illustration of Kevin Rex. We're done with it.
Overall, my first impressions are very positive. I'm going to continue playing the game and possibly make a full review when I'm done. It's such a shame that this game is not on Steam as well, but maybe they still have plans to release it further down the line. I have no clue about the console ports and how well it plays on Xbox or PlayStation, but I might even pick it up on one of those systems just to have a physical copy if I like the game enough.
See? I've got a blade.
Anyway guys, tell me what you think about Blades of Fire in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more content like this. And if you want to go a step further, consider supporting your boy by becoming a YouTube channel member or a Patreon. Huge thanks to all my current supporters, and I'll see ya in the next one.